So I'd like to call to order the Education Planning Committee meeting, October 2nd at 4:30 p.m. And first order of business is the committee meeting minutes. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, corrections in the past minutes? No, any, thank you for that. Start with the enrollment update. Carol, provide us.
Carol Urbatus. Hello, everyone. So I will give you a verbal update of enrollment based on Friday, September 27th, which is a week later than the information that is in your packet. So overall enrollment head count, excluding Gemini and non-credit state aidable, head count is up 6.9%. And FTE is up 2.1%. When we factor in Gemini, and Gemini registrations began in early September and will continue through the end of October. Head count is down 14.9%, and FTE is down 6.8%. However, you should know that there are 2,000 registrations as of last Friday that are in the one-stop center waiting for manual processing, inputting. And the one-stop center is down 2 full-time staff members. So I am working with the one-stop director and Michael Fisher, our AVP of Enrollment Management, to provide overtime for folks to catch up prior to the end of October, when I know APCI has reporting requirements. So do not become alarmed. Everything is under control. Questions? Yes.
Can you just briefly explain how one student taking one Gemini course, how that's calculated in terms of FTE?
A 3-credit course?
It depends on the number of credits that there is. So it could be a 1-credit course, it could be a 2-credit course, it could be a 3-credit course, it could be a 4-credit course. And then that is calculated by 30 in order to look at the full-time equivalency. The FTE is important for budgeting, the head count is important for planning. And because in particular Gemini students are in the schools, meaning they are on campus, we do have K-12 students who are on campus, but they're in a different category. They're particularly important because the FTE creates state aid. And so we have to know that FTE and not just the number of human heads that are.
And is Gemini trending up, down, or flat?
So Gemini for this fall will be trending up, according to the Director of Concurrent Enrollment, Fred Fink. And that is because course enrollment that would traditionally occur in the spring semester has now transitioned to the fall. So we anticipate seeing an increase. But based on that explanation, we also anticipate seeing a decrease in the spring.
Meaning we expect it to be flat.
Right. It all evens out.
Yeah, and that's what we predicted.
Right.
To speak for myself.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Appreciate that.
And Dr. Ortloff mentioned that there is dual enrollment outside of Gemini. So dual enrollment are those students in high school taking credits on our campus or one of our locations, as well as homeschool students. That headcount and FTE is factored into our enrollment currently,
Okay.
just as point of clarification.
Thank
So
you.
Gemini, the Gemini registration I'm speaking about is courses in the high school.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind. Thanks.
Yes. Other questions? You're
No
welcome.
problem.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abate. We have a student success, culture and history, a tour of the Finger Lakes. Austin, stop this. See you, Austin.
It's me. Hi, I'm Austin Stagus. Hello, everyone. I'd like to talk to you all about Phi Theta Kappa's Summer College Project and how students were able to benefit from the experience. It was the culmination of a lot of correspondence and planning between students, groups, museums, and services, but by all accounts, students gained a lot by attending and had a lot of fun too. So what is a Phi Theta Kappa college project? Every year, in order to gain one of 5 stars for your college's status, students must conduct a college project. The project's main focus is to organize your PTK chapter for the benefit of the students in school. Specifically, it is intended to further the mission of your college and form bonds between students, faculty, groups, and administration. From this framework, we began developing our 2024 college project for FLCC. As you all know, the mission of FLCC is to serve as a dynamic learning resource, empowering students to succeed and to fuel the cultural and economic vitality of the region. Its vision, to build innovative programs to meet evolving educational needs and draw on partnerships in the community and beyond. FLCC will offer an educational environment that is intentionally designed to engage our students and propel them to completion. Some key points were jumping out at me from these 2 statements that helped us decide on our. We wanted to engage students in a dynamic learning environment. This project would promote learning for those with evolving educational needs, foster connections with local organizations in our community, and it would fuel the cultural and economic vitality of the region. This is how we decided on the design of Culture and History, a tour of the Finger Lakes Museums. One full day for students to experience a wide range of the rich history and vibrant culture that makes its home here in upstate New York. A crash course on all the things that make our slice of the country unique and historically impactful. Our day would begin by boarding one of our school vans, driven by Professor Merrill, who we of course would not have done this without. We would start our day by visiting the Ganondigan Historic Site, or Town of Peace, in Victor, New York, home of the Seneca tribe and the only New York State historic site dedicated to a Native American theme. This 2-hour-long visit would include 3 activities, after which the group would travel to the food court at Eastview Mall to provide an opportunity for students to purchase lunch or take part in the complimentary lunch provided on the trip. Afterwards, students would travel to the George Eastman Museum in Rochester for a guided tour detailing the life of the titular entrepreneur who founded the Eastman Kodak Company and helped make rural film mainstream in society. Students would then move on to the Susan B. Anthony House for another guided tour of the family home and operational headquarters of Susan B. Anthony and her lifelong efforts to achieve equal civil liberties for women in the United States. Finally, students would return to campus for a free dinner and viewing of the PBS documentary, Journeys Through the Finger Lakes, followed by a roundtable discussion of the day's events and learning. A long day to be sure, but if there's one thing Phi Theta Kappa loves to do, it's learn. So with that, we were off for the day. Our first stop began at the Ganondigan Historic Site. Our group had scheduled 3 activities over a 2-hour tour, including a viewing of the creation story film created and voiced by the Haudenosaunee tribe themselves, a walking tour of the Seneca Art and Culture Center, and finally a viewing of their traditional bark longhouse. The creation story was a fantastic way to begin our tour, showcasing the fascinating folklore of the Haudenosaunee people and sparking interest in students right from the start. Once concluded, students began discussing parallels between what they had learned and the religious narratives and touch points of other known cultural folklore, as well as asking many questions to our guide regarding the film. Afterwards, students were able to get hands-on with the history of the Seneca with exhibits and interactive displays, an extensive art exhibit showcasing pieces by Seneca artists, and speak with our guide about topics that interested them. It was enlightening speaking to the students as they roamed freely around the Culture Center, learning about what piqued their curiosity and how the alternative learning opportunity gave them a chance to educate themselves at their own pace and in their own way. Wrapping up our time at the Ganonigan Historic Site was our tour of the original bark longhouse, which was noted as a favorite by many at the end of the trip. Students were able to fully explore the features of the longhouse, including examining many original or recreations of the traditional items from everyday Haudenosaunee life. Students learned of the matriarchal Seneca governance and the egalitarian way in which decisions were made for the tribe. Many students noted how progressive the tribe was in its functioning and the fact that many freedoms we fight and strive for today were achieved by the Seneca long ago. Our student, Warren Owens, said, "They had it all figured out a long time ago. Our society has screwed up everything, but they had it right even back then." Another great quote from the Haudenosaunee came from Vanessa Gonzalez, or Gonzo, as many know her. It was really cool how she was describing the community and how everyone fit in, how everyone had their own votes, and it didn't really matter their gender or identity or hierarchy in any way. Everyone was just able to communicate. Our group stopped at ECU Mall for about an hour for lunch, and then we were back on the trip. Our next stop was the George Eastman Museum, the world's oldest photography museum, one of the oldest film archives, and the home of the man himself, George Eastman, pioneer of photography. During our docent-led tour, we learned of the history, accomplishments, and innovations of George Eastman. His impacts on the world of photography and film were explained in detail, and students learned of his fascinating life in Rochester, New York. The home of George Eastman itself was an absolute marvel, a true time capsule of architecture and design in which students could examine the original and authentic pieces and reproductions of period-accurate furniture and decor. Some decor that perhaps might not go over so well in the modern era, such as a massive mounted elephant head hanging above your ballroom, or a wastebasket made from elephant foot, or this piece on Eastman's couch there, a favorite of students on the trip. George had rescued a baby cheetah and donated it to the local zoo, after which he kept its pelt once it died peacefully. However, George was much more than a wealthy businessman with extravagant hobbies. Students learned of his forward-thinking values and philanthropic contributions to not just universities like the U of R and MIT, but also primarily Black universities, which was a rarity for the time. George also founded the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra and the Eastman Dental Dispensary to provide free dental services to Rochester citizens. At the risk of sounding self-aggrandizing, I'll quote myself from a discussion we had that I think echoes some of the sentiments of the students following the George Eastman Museum. I think George Eastman shows us that wealth and success don't have to be mutually exclusive from empathy, which seems to be becoming a rare combination in our modern day. Finally, our group visited the Susan B. Anthony House for a tour of the home and lifelong pursuits of one of, if not the most influential women's rights activists in America. During this tour, students received an in-depth retelling of the life and times of Susan B. Anthony in the original home in which many of her endeavors occurred. Question and answer sessions along the tour helped students dig deeper into Susan's historic life and her movement, and students appreciated that give and take. The home itself was a wonder as well, as much of the furniture was original from Susan or faithfully recreated along with original newspapers, articles, and more. A fun element of the tour was when students were shown photos of the rooms they were currently in, but from 200 years prior, to illustrate just how accurate the home had been kept. Most importantly, the lasting impact of the women's rights movements Susan spearheaded and supported were discussed, as well as the continuing fight for equality that persists to this day. Students remarked that the tour and Susan's efforts were particularly important now in our current political climate, and they appreciated the historical commitment to accuracy, not only praising her efforts, but acknowledging her missteps and downfalls of certain endeavors. Our student Eliza said, "I like the acknowledgement of the things that went well, but also the things that could have gone better, and the gaps and flaws in the movement." Once back on campus after our 8 hours of museum hopping, we had planned on watching a PBS documentary about the Finger Lakes and their culture, but it was a pretty unanimous decision to skip the movie for another day and proceed straight to our roundtable discussion of the day's events to save everyone from burnout. A roughly 30-minute discussion ensued, in which much back and forth was had among students and our PTK advisor, Professor Merrill, regarding the importance of what we had learned throughout the day, the historical significance of our region, and how our history relates to our modern day. Eliza noted, "As a neurodivergent person, I have a much easier time in places where I'm getting information in different ways. Things I can touch, things I can hear, things I can read, And having a great speaker be the person sharing the information made a difference. I felt very immersed in everything. One final thought I wanted to leave my fellow students with at the end of our discussion can be summed up with this quote. Look at what we got to see in one day. History is not far away. I read a lot about these things in my history classes, and then it turns out it's 30 minutes away. So much has happened historically in upstate New York, and we don't even think about it. We think our history as some far off thing, and we take for granted the history that's all around us. What we are learning here at FLCC does not have to stop when we leave campus. We are lucky to live in an area of the world rich in significant history that has shaped our country, and there's so many ways to experience it with FLCC and beyond. Now, as fun as the day was, it's obviously impossible to fully explore 3 expansive museums in one day, but that wasn't the point. One of the most common things I heard students saying towards the end of the trip was that they wanted to see more and that they would be returning with friends and family. Students became curious, learned, formed connections with each other, and had stimulating conversations about upstate New York's history with guides and docents. They were encouraged to learn on their terms in ways that suited them best, and FLCC and PTK made them happen together. From the mouths of the students, PTK's college project was different, educational, inclusive, and fun. And I wanted to thank Professor Merrill again for indulging me in my wild aspirations as PTK president and going with the flow with the ideas we wanted to pursue. I also want to mention that with the completion of this project and the leadership conference I'll be attending in November, FLCC's chapter of PTK will have earned 4 out of 5 stars for 2024, and the 5th will be achieved this semester following our research project, which we have begun brainstorming. We will keep everyone updated on our progress, but thank you for giving me the time to showcase what PTK has done at FLCC over the summer, and we look forward to sharing with you more as it happens. Thank you.
Very cool.
Any questions for Austin? And Austin, by the way, you are also you're on the student corp board.
I am, yes. I'm one of the co-directors of Activities Committee.
In your spare time, you do what?
Go to college.
Any questions for Austin?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Move to a strategic thought presentation on the effective use of instructional technology and support teaching and learning and it's so compelling and interesting. We thought the rest of the board would appreciate.
Okay.
Ryan?
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I'm going to move over here. For something a little bit different, I'll try to speak up so the microphone catches me. Where's this thing? Won't work over here.
All of them.
It's fine. I'll stand.
And some
Okay.
WebEx link too.
All right, so I just want to provide show you some of the technologies that we offer at the institution and what we use them for. We'll talk about a few of those, and then we'll talk about some of the information related to student success, and then we'll talk a little bit about where we might be going in the future. So Brightspace is our learning management system. This is the system where all of our online courses are delivered, all of our HiFlex courses are delivered. Our hybrid course content is partially delivered through here. And starting in the spring, we will have a midterm grade that will be housed inside of here for every course section. So we're doing a mandatory midterm grade project starting in the spring. And so that will be, I think, really helpful in ensuring cultivates all of our video content for us. One really nice thing about this platform is that it allows students to watch lectures over again. So if a student misses a class, they can go in, and if the instructor has recorded it, they can watch it again using the software. And if the instructor has went in and put a table of contents in, they can click on whatever topic they want to learn more about, and it'll take them right to that topic, right to that time in the video. So you're not kind of scrubbing back and forth like maybe some of you have done on various platforms. It's a really nice feature, and generally studies find that students do about 10% better in their courses when given the opportunity to watch a lecture again. Because as you're furiously writing notes, a lot of times you're missing what's being said right at that moment. So this is a really great platform, used pretty widely, and really, Jonathan Weissman does a great job using this in his course for all of his networking cybersecurity courses, and he puts table of contents in for all students and they love it. Hypothesis is a social annotation platform. What this allows is for you to take any document, book, anything along those lines that you upload into Brightspace, and your class can go through and make annotations on that document and then comment on those annotations. So you can almost have a discussion, but using the text right in front of you. So as opposed to using APA referencing in a discussion post, you're doing it right there. And everything is in a different color and it has your name next to it and what your comments were. And we find that is very powerful in some of our communications courses, as well as some of our creative writing courses. Respondus is our lockdown browser and monitor. This is to hopefully ward off the idea of students cheating inside of their online courses. What this does is activates a video camera on the student's computer, and students have to scan the room to show what's in the room before they take their test. And then this will flag anything that seems suspicious using AI. So anything that maybe seems like, oh, why is that student looking off over there in the distance for quite a long period of time? We had one student who was taking a math test who got up for 50 minutes and then came back. And the instructor said, that's a really long time to go to the bathroom. And that's true, it really is. And the student really didn't have a great answer beyond that. And so, you know, this is really meant to build the fence a little bit higher and to build some, a little bit of faith in the idea that the students who are taking the tests are those students and that they're not just, you know, typing every answer into their phone and then taking the test. And this allows for that to happen. We've been pretty happy with it so far, and we will continue to use it. VoiceThread allows you to have audio-based discussions and video-based discussions. So instead of just typing text into a chat box and replying to that text like you would see generally on social media, this allows you to respond with a video. It allows you to respond with audio. If students don't have a cell phone, which is pretty rare, there's even a phone number you can call if you have a landline, and you can put your message on there and it'll show up here. So it allows for a little bit more of an interactive discussion. And also it allows the instructor's personality to come out a little bit more than normally would happen with just text. It also allows students to get to know other students on a deeper level, especially when you're at a distance. Turnitin is a platform that we use for when students turn in, let's say, an essay or a paper. It runs that essay or paper against every essay and paper it's ever collected over the course of its lifetime, and offers a report based on how likely it is that that was plagiarized. So this gives our instructors a pretty good confidence level on whether students have used someone else's content, reused their own content, or maybe even used AI. This is updating frequently to have AI detection, and generally it does a pretty good job of that. So as we move to talking about modalities a little bit, we currently have 36 rooms on campus that have HyFlex technology. So those rooms, whether there's HyFlex courses in there or not, instructors can use that technology to record their classes, which then ties into Panopto, which we talked about earlier, which gives them that option to store that information and have students view it at a later point. We have trained 57 instructors in how to teach in the HyFlex modality. They've been trained through a variety of sources, but most of them were trained by the person, Brian Beatty, who invented the HyFlex modality. So that's been really beneficial. There's now an incentive in the faculty contract and a goal in the academic and student affairs division to create more HyFlex opportunities, because we found that students do very well in them. The number is relatively small at the moment, but when students take those courses, they do pretty well in them. And this chart, you will kind of see some of those numbers. Hopefully it's big enough where you can see it. But the column all the way at the end is generally the column that I use. That is census to completion. So that means students who have stayed in the course past the first 3 weeks. Because we get a variety of students who never show up or for whatever reason, some of them forget they signed up for a class. This shows you student success from that census date to the completion of the course. And you'll notice that hybrid and HiFlex are consistently the top performers. They kind of go back and forth a little bit over the years. This is just for spring because this is the most recent data that we have. But the other really interesting thing to look at here is the online student success versus face-to-face. I think there's about a 7% difference there, if I'm looking at it correctly. It's hard to see from this angle. That difference used to be 17%. So students who were in online courses were successful roughly 59% of the time not that long ago. And now they're successful 77% of the time. And in the summer, when we have students, a lot of non-matriculated students from four-year institutions, that success rate jumps into the high 80s. It's usually about 88, 89%. The other thing that we're doing to try to improve some of our online courses is a course quality initiative, which is where we're going to review all of the sections that are taught online. We will put them on a cycle of 2 to 3 years. We haven't figured out exactly what the timeline is going to be just yet. But basically the idea is that we're sure that these courses are using the best pedagogy, have all of the correct accessibility elements in place. They're using the latest technology to deliver to the students in the best way possible, and that they have sound instructional design. And so the hope here is that that number that we looked at 77%, by doing this, maybe we can get that even a little bit higher. And then we're going to use the SUNY Online course quality rubric, which was developed in SUNY about 5 or 6 years ago and has been adopted by the Online Learning Consortium, which is one of the biggest online groups in the nation. So what's next? Artificial intelligence, I'm sure you could have seen that coming. Starting artificial intelligence with, we have a think tank that Dr. and I has put together. So we will have that looking into various aspects of artificial intelligence, and then we're going to be using an artificial intelligence tutoring platform to test that out, to see how that works with helping students. Obviously that can be 24/7, which is very helpful. We do have a 24/7 tutoring platform, but this is going to be in addition to that. And if this works better, then maybe we would use this moving forward. But it is something that we need to make sure that we are embedding across our curriculum, something that students know how to use. There's going to be no escaping artificial intelligence. It's going to be involved in everything that we do moving forward. Virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, how do we bring those experiences to students? You know, we are doing that. The board is very familiar with the HoloLens project from Christy Parker. But how else can we do that? Last year, we bought a bunch of devices to test them out and see how we bought some Apple Vision Pros, some MetaQuests, to see how we could use those in the delivery of instruction. And also, what if a student shows up wearing one of those? How do you deal with that kind of issue? And then finally, just as we move forward, some of the things I think we need to consider are personalized learning paths and what our semester schedule looks like. We need to use software and/or classroom assessment techniques to understand students where they are. So that is, how much do they know when they walk into the room on any given day? What do they remember from the last lesson? What do they remember from last year? All of those things are really important to understand because a lot of times we end up teaching to the middle. We teach to that student who's right in the middle. So the students who are, doing really, really, really well, they tend to not have as much opportunity to move forward faster. And those students who are behind may never catch up because we're teaching the student in the middle. So K-12 does this really well. We don't do it as well, but it is something that we need to probably look at as we move forward, as those softwares improve and as we have the ability to bring those softwares to bear on our campus. That will allow each student to reach their potential on their timeline. And some of this has to do with possibly some competency-based education. That is, once students understand a certain learning outcome and have proven that, they move on to the next learning outcome. And it may take one student 15 weeks and it may take another student 3 weeks. It all depends on how long it takes them. There's still some federal issues with that as far as financial aid, but I do think that as we move forward, since this is a what's next slide, in my opinion, I think that's what's next. We need to give more credit for prior learning. So people, adults who have been out in business, who have served in the military, who have participated in all kinds of things outside of this institution when they arrive that may align very well with some of our courses. We need to ensure that we're giving them credit for that. And we are working on putting together a committee that'll look at that. And we crafted a policy last year related to this topic. So we need to ensure that we are giving the right amount of credit for prior learning and not making students redo what they've already done or relearn what they've already learned. And then finally, related to the semester schedule, we need to have more just-in-time educational opportunities, whether that be through workforce development, whether that be through the credit side of the house. That maybe involves adding more 7-week courses or 5-week courses so that if a student wants to start today, let's see, if a student wanted to start today, they would have to wait until, I believe it's October 22nd. So that's not too bad. But if a student wanted to start November 1st, they have to wait until January 27th, unless they take a winter course. But still, they would have to wait 6 weeks to get started. And a lot of times that once a student expresses their interest, that's the time to kind of jump on that opportunity because that interest may wane. And so when they are interested, we want to make sure we have something we can offer them, whether that be workforce or credit. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for Ryan McCabe? Donna? No?
Great
It's
recap.
it's really kind of remarkable to me that I think the eye opener for me was the progression in both hybrid and online learning and the outcomes. It's just tremendous. So, other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And last but certainly not least is Dr. Covington with institution-wide efforts in support of civil discourse.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we are doing a variety of things on campus when it comes to civil discourse. There's 4 offices that are primarily involved. My office, the Office of Student Life, the Office of Human Resources, as well as the Campus Police Office. I shared some things in the presentation, just letting you know our stance when it comes to freedom of expression here on campus. It used to be called the free speech policy. As you know, we updated it because expression can be more than speech. Once again, it's also important to know that the First Amendment does not guarantee unrestricted speech at any time or to any place. We have parameters here in place on campus in order to support that. In regards to freedom of expression, once again, speech is referred to in the phrase free speech actually can take many forms. That's why we use freedom of expression here on this campus. The expressive activity, once again, can include, but is not limited to, assembly, protest, speech, distribution of written material, carrying of a sign, and circulation of petitions. We're very happy that we didn't have any hiccups at this past graduation. In regards to these activities, they're protected by the First Amendment as well as New York State law. We do a variety of things, but we have individuals who would like to express their free speech on campus, including ensuring the safety of everyone on campus, including those participating in demonstrations. Protecting everyone's right to free speech. As I mentioned during my last presentation, there are limitations around it, specifically now a little bit more of a tight net when it comes to Title VI. We want to minimize disruptions when it comes to university activities and prevent damage to property. I also included in the presentation some legal information in regards to what free speech actually entails, as well as the legal information in regards to what it does not entail. So for the individual who just say, well, I can just say what I want. No, you can't. And we have the legal information in regards to why you cannot do that. We want to reinforce our values here as a campus: community, vitality, inquiry, perseverance, and interconnectedness. And we have a variety, actually we have 11 policies on campus, which free speech would be a part of, right? So I had that here. We started off this semester with a presentation by myself and Professor Eric Duchess in regards to navigating civil discourse across the academy. We have pretty decent attendance, some open dialogue, and students are asking for more. But sometimes it shouldn't always come from in-house. We have the next person I have coming towards the end of October is actually the director of the Free Speech Center at Syracuse. I reached out to him, I was pulling up my email I sent to him, and I'm very excited to bring him in, and he's gonna be talking about the following. First and foremost, what is free speech? Even though we know, just have somebody else reiterate it. Free speech within the academy, the difference between free speech and academic freedom, the limitations of free speech, the new limitations of free speech given Title VI, and what systems can colleges and universities implement in order to promote civility, right? It's also important to know less of a challenge for us here because we're a public institution. We have to enforce the First Amendment, but he's going to talk about the difference between public and private institutions. In addition to that, I'm going to be hooking up with some professors in regards to, once again, some more programming through our Center for Teaching and Learning, creating inclusive spaces, as well as controversial issues in the classroom. After the election, the last time we had a major, for lack of a better word, controversial election, myself and once again, Eric Dutchess, we did something called a post-election discussion. We opened that up to the campus community just to get any unresolved feelings in regards to the election turnout. This was very well received, and we're going to do it again. Under the Office of Student Life, our students have to be trained not only in Title IX, but also in Title VI. So student athletes must be educated in Title IX prior to the start of the school year. That's organized through the Office of Athletics. She also leans very heavily on the Office of Student Life, and the federal Title IX regulations don't necessarily specify that, but we do that in adherence with New York State law. We also have a platform called Student Lingo, where students can learn information in regards to, so long as you're sure it's on-demand webinars. Students can learn information in regards to healthy relationships, consent, as well as Title IX. All students need to understand their rights under Title IX and Title VI. Schools need to expressly identify how to report. So in regards to reporting on this campus, that can happen through the Office of Student Conduct. And you also have a landing page on the Office of Campus Police. Schools must also ensure that students understand the consequences of possible violations for these policies, and we communicate that to students in a variety of ways. One way that we reported or share with students is during orientation online and in person. We have a monthly Know Your Rights campaign that's organized through the Office of Student Life. And the Office of Campus Police, my office, is also working on creating the FAST team, which I'm going to talk about. Through human resources, we have mandatory Title VI training, as well as mandatory Title IX training. Through, we have to report that back to SUNY, and I touched base today. So we have good news and bad news. I'll ask you, Donna, which one do you want first?
Bad news, please.
The bad news is that 30% of the campus still has not completed. The good news is 70% of the campus has completed, right? So 70% done. In regards to the 30%, it's primarily adjuncts. I looked into that today. So there's going to be a little bit more outreach to the adjuncts to make sure that they're up to snuff because it's mandatory. And then we also have to report this back to SUNY so they're capturing that information as well. Just some more information in regards to Title IX and Title VI. I think the training on campus has been well received. I mean, my office hasn't heard anything negative. Some people have come to me to ask a couple of questions. I also haven't heard anything negative in human resources as well. Campus police. So you may or may not know that we have something here when something ignites, for lack of a better word, called the Emergency Operations Center. So it supports your operations if we have something that may rise up to the occasion where we have to pull several stakeholders together in order to address some type of emergency on campus. I shared some information in regards to the establishment of the EOC, but it's also important to note that the size of the EOC is based on the size, scope, and seriousness of the event. So sometimes it may be a very small or brief EOC in regards to how things should move forward. But if we have some type of major situation, then that would escalate the number of people involved. As well as the duration of how long the EOC needs to take place. I shared the communication map that I got from the Office of Campus Police in regards to the incident takes place, it goes to the individual reporter, emergency response, If it needs an initial or immediate response, what's the next steps? If it does not, what's the next steps? Making sure that we have all the proper stakeholders involved. Once again, going from incident command to the management team, and then once again to the executive policy group. When you see the board of trustees, the county and SUNY, that's typically going to come from the president in regards to what he would like to communicate to those stakeholders as well. Quite frankly, I wish we never had to call the EOC. I think everybody would agree to that, but we are a college campus and sometimes things pop up. In regards to different roles within the EOC, I mapped that out and I put the names of different stakeholders as well as what they would be covering. So emergency manager, scribe, support services, finance, public information officer, community relations, resource coordination, intelligence liaison officer between the EOC in regards to EOC and EPG, operations coordination, planning and analysis, safety officer, as well as technical support as needed. Some information in regards to emergency plans, but I really want to share with you, this is just information from the chief of police in regards to the 7 critical steps relevant to law enforcement, securing communications, establishing an inner perimeter, outer perimeter command posts, killing zones, danger areas. Once again, we would never want this to happen here, obviously. Staging areas and additional resources. Something very exciting that we brought this year with graduation was called the FAST team, the First Amendment Support Team. One of the emphasis for this team is that it needs to be reiterated that, especially with, in my opinion, the changing and the student dynamics and the culture that's going on nationally and locally, you don't want every time something happens on a college campus for people to feel that you're sending a militaristic police force out there, right? If we can have some type of low-level intervention to interact with protesters or students or whoever who may have a concern, that would be where the FAST team can jump in. If things escalate, then we may need police presence, but sometimes you can de-escalate information, situations without ending up on the local paper. So in regards to the FAST team, we're continuing to have discussions here on college campus. Myself, the AVP for Student Affairs, and the Chief of Police are going to be overseeing the FAST team. So which means we wouldn't serve on the FAST team, but overseeing what they're going to be doing when things hit campus as well. So I just want to share everything we're doing around civil discourse for the campus community, but I really want to open up the floor to see if there's any questions or concerns. Please.
So 2 things. One, I liked how you did the freedom of speech chart with the Supreme Court decisions right on there, so people cannot question that.
Oh, they'll still, they'll still question it, I promise you.
And I found that when I taught government, freedom of speech was the least understood concept, because everybody really has this idea that they can go out and say whatever they want and they are protected. And so it is a very hard one to get across. And also, could you send an email to us when this gentleman is going to speak?
1,000,000,000%. I'll also send you the flyer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Thank you, Dr. Cover.
You're very welcome.
I just was curious, how long has the FAST group been in place?
It really started this year for graduation. I would say that it's something that has picked up here. We learned about it through OCC, so sharing resources, right? And I think that we did well with it during graduation, but to solidify it more here on campus, what we put together for graduation, for lack of a better word, was as necessary. But now that we have more time, myself, the AVP for Student Affairs and Chief of Police are going to have a more deeper conversation regarding so who should be serving on the FAST team, what should that look like, how will we now, for lack of a better word, put them to task if something happens on campus, what type of event should they be, what type of incident, should they be responding to, et cetera. Quite frankly, based on things that we have seen at bigger institutions, Columbia, Harvard, Ohio State, et cetera, I think it would be best practice to have the FAST team here because we have clearly evidence on a national landscape. When campus police or external agencies, for us, it would be Ontario County. If they interfere too early and things go left real quick, that can be problematic. And that's not what we want. So quite frankly, what we want, let me quote Eric Duchess, we want civil discourse to turn to meaningful discourse in order to keep the peace.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thank you. And with that, we can take a motion for adjournment.
I move.
Joan, thank you for second.
Second.
Donna, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Trustee Epstein. Thank you. I'll call the meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee to order for October 2nd. And the first item of business is the September minutes. Any comments, questions? Okay, if not, Jason is up front, ready to do a preliminary review of the 23-24 year. Jason.
Thank you. So here are our preliminary results as of 8/31/2024. I say preliminary because we're going through our audit process. So there could be additional entries that get booked as part of that, as well as us closing out the year. So as you'll see, revenues exceeded our budget. This was driven mainly because of a 6% increase in FTE for the fall and spring semesters last year, as well as a 16.1% FTE for summer. We had originally budgeted a 2% decline. I think a lot of community colleges across New York State were surprised with the increase in enrollment. We keep talking that there's an enrollment cliff coming. So I think, we're feeling the effects of, maybe some layover from COVID, and now students coming back. So just to kind of keep that in perspective, that enrollment decline is potentially still out there. Now, there's ways that we're trying to mitigate that. So it's just something that to keep in perspective. The other thing is we took advantage of higher interest rates related for our interest. So added a pretty sizable amount of interest income recognized in miscellaneous revenues. So miscellaneous revenues also has some fees and things in there. And entries that I know need to be made still are related to our grant accounting. So we have some indirect revenue that we can recognize as part of grants. That is still being finalized as we close the books for the year. So I would expect these revenue numbers to inch up a little bit, not too much more from what we have here on the screen. Expenses are becoming more locked down. We do have maybe a little bit more movement in salaries and benefits. We did book our year-end accrual, but again, some of that grant cleanup is allowing or moving some funds around. If we overspent the grant, we move it back to operating. We have salaries that could be moved to the grant, then we'll move that as well. So the only other large entry that needs to be made is as we continue to analyze our outstanding AR balance, looking at an additional allowance to book. So that entry is still out there. We'll probably add close to $1 million in our allowance, just because of outstanding debt that we have mainly from COVID time. During that time, the governor did put a pause on sending those students to collections. So we're really evaluating, if what we do with those student balances that came through during COVID. So any questions?
Any questions for Jason? No? So we have a number of resolutions to go through.
Yes.
Some of them require more explanation than others, but Jason, why don't you work your way down through them?
Sure. The first one is related to the hauling and disposal of trash. This will be a short-term contract. We'll rebid this in December, so. Or actually next year, I'm sorry. The next one is to approve a write-off of accounts receivable, in the amount of $453,000. This is looking at balances that went all the way back to fall of 1998 through the summer of 2021. So these are old balances that got hung up on our ledger, but we do need to write those off. We are still analyzing write-offs for our fall of 2021 through the summer of 2022. And we'll have that to presented in the November meeting, but the 453 will write off a lot of those old outstanding AR balances, so.
Any questions on that? Okay,
That all falls in last year.
That will fall in the, so we've booked that allowance already, based on analysis done last year, so it was in our statement of activities for 22-23.
Right.
This will be a balance sheet related item, so it doesn't go to our statement of activities.
Right.
But what that does is reduce that allowance, so then we have to reanalyze that allowance to make sure it's sufficient for future outstanding debts. And that's what will be booked to the statement of activities. That's that $1 million that we're looking to add to the statement of activities this year.
Thank you.
any other questions regarding that? Okay, if not, want to talk about a 20-year lease extension?
Yes, so this is really to assist with receiving the state funding, the state match that we get from our capital improvement dollars, in which the Department of Taxation wants, our department budget makes it easier for them to push the funds to us based on, you know, the educational purposes. So a longer lease allows them to be comfortable that the life of those dollars will assist as they bond that and leave that go forward. So we're extending from 20 to another 20 years for that additional 5,000. It does, we do have an out clause in there, but you know, the Mueller Foundation has also committed to that 40 years to continue funding as well.
So just for clarification, this is related to the capital investment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And FLCC's commitment to that property, since property is technically owned by the foundation or part of the foundation. That's why this additional 40 years or additional 20 years is needed. So.
Any questions regarding that? Okay. Go ahead, Jason.
The next one is is initiating the environmental review process for our EV stations that are planning to be installed in parking lot G. This will be funded completely by NYSERDA, RG&E, as well as IRS tax credits. No impact to the college from a financial impact. The EV stations will be installed up towards the ticket booth in that first row there up in the front of that parking lot. This is to establish that the Board of Trustees will act as the lead agent with the seeker. We're looking to have a public hearing held on October 18th at 1 o'clock in the boardroom, which the president and I will attend that. So. And then in our November meeting, we'll declare the results of our environmental review.
Any questions regarding that? That's super, Fred Woolley. Jason, do you know what, these are high speed or are they level 2, level 3?
Can get back to you. I think they're level 2.
Level 2?
Yeah. Yep. So, right now we've looked at other areas around campus. Lot G was where all the power comes from the road, or is easier to install. The rest of it, A lots and all the other lots, I think we initially got quoted, it was over $1 million to install it. So, so a pretty sizable amount. Not saying we'll not do it in the future, but right now, Lot G was where it was the place that made the most sense. So.
Yeah, level 3s are very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say they were level 2, but I'll look back at that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions regarding the EV stations? If not, Jason, next one.
The next resolution is for a feasibility study. This will be funded half by the foundation and half by the college. Feasibility study will help to determine if FLCC and the foundation can successfully meet its fundraising goals. This is important as we look at our new horticulture building, as well as other funding opportunities that we have in our master plan. The study will run, we did obtain 3 quotes, or the foundation obtained 3 quotes for this. The company selected CCS, provided the full service, met our timelines as far as what we're looking for in order to meet our commitment to the feasibility. So, and trying to get the results. Any questions?
Okay, none. Go ahead and put in support services.
The next 2 are support services. One is related to colleague system support services. This is continuing our support services with Aleutian for advisory and consulting services. As we continue to learn more about our system, as well as looking at the customizations and removing some of those customizations, these support services are needed, within HR, finance, and even IT. So.
Yeah, would you like to comment?
No, he did a great job.
And
It
the-
wasn't- I wanted more detail on that.
Cut you out?
No, I can tell you at 5 o'clock tonight, I got another email that there are changes coming down for financial aid that again will require more adjustments, and we've been working on that for 4 or 5 months.
Okay,
So it's a challenge.
okay. Any comments or questions regarding that?
You want to talk about iTech real quick, or?
iTech, the other item on your list is a renewal for iTech. They're part of the SUNY group and they assist us with backing up a lot of the services that our team internally does. We work with them routinely, that they cover helping us with backups. I have a manager leaving, so I might use them a little bit to augment some support services in that area, as well as helping with networking and such, because our network person that we had actually left a while ago and we just hired another person. So it'll be good to get some backup on that area because that handles all our firewalls, routers, switches, everything that helps protect the college. So that's what iTech's going to continue helping us with.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Rob wants to take this.
Yes.
Oh, man, do I have to?
Yeah, launch into it.
The next resolution pertains to requesting $100,000 from the trustees to support the AI think tank and lab. It's an extension of the leader retreat that we had in August. And the message that I also sent previously that will provide seed monies for faculty and staff to be able to explore various elements of AI that can be brought back to be beneficial for the college. And then based on that seed money then can help feed into things that are really relevant into either the strategic grant fund or our budgeting processes for things that are important to help us evolve with AI into the future. So it's really the seed money to give the start for us to be one of the leaders in terms of being innovative with AI in the future, or at least being with the wave and not being caught and being pounded by the wave in terms of how AI is going to impact our society and education in the future.
Comments, questions? Okay,
But
very good.
I
Jason,
think
you
the
have
next
to review
3 are just bid acceptance, pre-accepted bids, low-cost bids, so that's those 3, and then the last one is just some inter-department budget transfer, so reallocation of funds.
Any comments? Okay, if not, entertain a motion to attend the meeting.
So moved. Rich. Thank you. Second? Thanks, Brett. You're welcome. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, trustee Apple. I think we're going too fast here, right? I'd like to open the board of trustees meeting for October 2nd. Is there any public on the line?
No.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to approve the set agenda minutes and the resolutions.
So
Trustee guys. No second. Trustee Etzel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You? Okay, old business. Trustee guys. And trustee Etzel. Any old business? Any new business? Oh, I have nothing. Other than I thought.
Well, we're on a roll here. It's gonna be a meeting. First thing, the one I want to highlight the most is the announcement of the $2.25 million Title III grant. That is really good news for our college in many ways, not just for the money. I mentioned the other day, to me, it brings us into the band of excellence in terms of our writing capabilities, processes to be able to bring those types of grants to the college that really significantly augment what we're doing. And the Title III grant, in this case, is providing $450,000 a year to provide for additional counselors, first-year experience coordinator, data analyst, to be able to help us augment what's already going on with the PACE program and the ASAP program, which means it should hopefully really provide us a robust set of activities to help our students succeed. And to put it in perspective, this year in the fall semester, we have 118 more continuing students than we've had the previous year. That's the first year in over a decade that we've had more returning students than the previous year. So if you can imagine the power that the board put into the $500,000 for the PACE program with the $650,000 for the ASAP program, and now with this $450,000 a year for additional support, we should have a very robust operation. Now, it's not easy, and I have to compliment a lot of people. First off, Mary Beth Phillips has done such a wonderful job as our grant writer in herding stray cats. But then you have your AVPs from the academic, chief academic office, that Cassie Kent, Ryan McCabe, and where's my brain? And Sarah Whitman, excuse me, I was sorry, but I was gonna say her separately, that we're helping to support that and get that ready to go for submission. But then you really have Sarah Whitman, who's, Mary Beth may have herded stray cats for the grant activities, but Sarah Whitman's herding the stray cats for all these different folks, new folks coming in and creating this operation. It's not easy because the pace is different from ASAP. The Title III was supposed to augment what we were doing for the PACE program, but it does provide a great set of opportunities. I'm very thankful for those folks for what they're doing. And in particular, Mary Beth for the stray cats and Sarah Whitman for the stray cats she has to do for that activity. So really, we have hit a really great mark in terms of this activity. And now we get to achieve an even higher mark now by performing with these funds to help our students succeed. And it's going to be really good. So thank you for everyone who's involved. Dr. Orloff was involved in helping, and I'm missing names of folks, but it is really special to get a Title III grant, and we should really celebrate that. Second thing I wanted to mention was I've asked Dr. Avedis and her team to look at how can we explore international student markets in various ways. And her team's found a really innovative one with an organization in Italy, made in Italy, or something like that. But it's gonna create a lot of opportunities. I'll let you say it right, Carol. Go ahead and say it right.
Closer, the Made Institute for Fine Arts
Okay. In Italy, so.
in Sicily.
So, but it's exciting because it's creating two-way opportunities for our students in many different ways. And then finally, you want to talk about interconnectedness. We have a lot of different workforce programs that are ongoing. The first digital welding program is ongoing right now. You've got the advanced manufacturing program going. You've got a number of different workforce programs that are ongoing or getting ready to start. And I'm really looking forward to the end state of things like the virtual welding to show that our students can get jobs in those areas with that virtual welding. Because when they do, we're truly proving that things in AI and virtual reality are really going to change the way that we train and educate in the future. And just finally, again, another thanks for Sarah Whiffen and Jenny Ertl in particular and their team. When you have over 1,000 students that went through some sort of student orientation, which is an important starting point, that really helps and makes a difference for our students. And they've been consistently increasing in the numbers of orientation. We had to take the face-to-face one from the auditorium and put it, from the auditorium to the gym. So really appreciate that. And that's a third of our traditional students overall that are, and the vast majority of them are new students that went through the orientation. So we're really good at that. So a lot of good people doing a lot of great things. That's my report.
Thank you. Committee and liaison reports, trustee Hall, student report.
Hard to follow on that report. So updates for students today was a transfer fair that the academic advising office hosted in the stage 14. And somehow they were able to manage to squeeze 26 different colleges into here. I peeked in a couple times throughout the day. It looked like pretty good traffic, but I hope to get an actual head count of students. Also, the athletics department saw a need from students to host intramurals. So starting this month, they will be hosting Tuesday and Thursday intramural sessions for students. And it will be continuing throughout the entire fall semester. And if it goes well, they'll continue it on to the spring semester too. And then finally, in 2 weeks, we'll have Laker Day on October 15th. For those of you who don't know, that's a day for students, faculty, and staff to professionally develop. And a very notable activity that we're doing this year that hasn't happened before is busing to Brockport, which is allowing transportation for students who are interested in going to Brockport to go and meet with advisors there, admissions, and kind of tour the whole facility, which is really cool. And I hope we can do this for other colleges in the future. And that's all I have to report.
Very good, thank you. Trustee Astles, audit and DRM. Nothing to report. Okay, trustee Mahalik, board development.
For development. We've had a series of recommendations from trustee Cushman. Thank you so much, George, for doing that. That we will need to discuss and bring to the board retreat
Thank you. The
for our bylaws.
association report is in the packet. It was a great meeting and I'm glad to be still on the committee. Right, Carol?
Indeed.
Yes. Foundation.
First, I'd like to thank you for passing the agreement, so we can move forward and, see if maybe we can finally get a greenhouse. All right, it would be wonderful. And the golf ball drop was Saturday. I was not here for it. I did not hear anything, so I assume I was not a winner. And Bree, do we possibly have any figures on it, or is it too early?
So we sold 1,015 golf balls. Athletics sold the majority of those tickets. So San Casino worked with all of the coaches, who then worked with all of the student athletes, and they went out and sold tickets for their respective teams. So this is a super awesome partnership between advancement and the foundation, and then our athletics sports teams. So I don't have the full dollar figures for you right now, but you could probably quick do the math of 1,000 tickets times $10 per ticket. And we will continue counting. So a lot of those tickets, because students and athletes are very busy, we're still collecting the monies for those sales. But yes, there were 2 winners announced, which I don't have in front of me right now, but it's not anybody in this room. Sorry. And we also got a really nice video that was made using the drone that went up above the actual like drop of the ball, so you could see, and that has been posted, I believe, on our Facebook page.
We've done LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's on LinkedIn, so you can look for that on our socials.
Thank you. Trustee Mahalik, NYCCT.
We are honoring 2 of our trustees at NYCCT's conference this year. Rich Russell, Trustee Russell, and former trustee Santa Abraham at the trustee awards banquet at the end of the conference. The conference starts Thursday with the Trustee Institute and goes through Sunday morning. The theme this year, I think I've mentioned before, and I'm sure you've read about it, is artificial intelligence and healthcare. George has done yeoman's work on advocacy, as you well know, and there was a meeting on this Monday afternoon, which I was unable to make due to a prior commitment, but it was with the executive committee of NYCCT and the SUNY chancellor. Do you have any information, George?
Yeah, we met with the SUNY chancellor and Merrill Tisch and several of the board members, including Candace, who's with the faculty council, the representative on the board. And we had several of our executive committee and Wendy and I who were elected to be on the executive committee. Discussion primarily surrounded items of interest to the chancellor with regard to the presidential search management and contracts. The tone of the meeting was very collegial, I thought. There's still hurdles to be gone through, and the some of the terms that are being used are shifting a little bit. So our next step is to get something firm in writing. I'm kind of working on that right now. And beyond that, we had some conversations about other areas of interest. The chancellor would like to help us on advocacy. This is, in my mind, a little bit of a double-edged sword. He wants to help us on areas of, wants to actually have trustees on a committee to work together with SUNY on healthcare funding, green jobs, IT/cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing /chips. On those 4 areas, my concern is he's just trying to add very restricted dollars into 4 categories, which is not necessarily going to be very helpful for us. It'll continue to put us into the in the hole. What we're asking for this year for advocacy essentially would help us tread water, frankly. So more on that to come. And the last item was on the transition of the senior vice chancellor for community colleges, and we do need to find a representative to serve on a committee, the search committee for that position. It's being advertised as vice chancellor. And the reasoning that the chancellor gave is that he's going to leave it open for the level of candidate that comes in. He doesn't want to get stuck with a junior candidate at a senior position if that's the better candidate. And that's the reasoning he's giving. That's the meeting right there.
Thank you. And for anyone who does not know, George is on the ballot at the conference this weekend to be the next chair of NYCCT. I'd like to take just a little bit of credit for the push to do that.
It was a trickery.
Where's the ballot box?
It's one of those ballots where you're the only one on the ballot.
Oh,
But, yeah, thank you, Donna. But Donna did trick me into all of this. She said, you know, maybe you can help out with the government relations committee. Right down a rabbit hole I went. Three-legged talk. Get out.
As your way.
It was Dr. Nicefault who said, better find a successor.
Could I add one thing, speaking of Chancellor? It wasn't part of my report. We'll find out, I think it's tomorrow, but the Chancellor may come visit us on October 10th. We got a very short first, one line, about 2 or 3 liners. And we're gonna work the details out, I think it's tomorrow, but it's gonna be a lunch and then 2 hours of, still trying to find out what it is, but about it looks like it's a tour of the facilities and activities that support the 8 million and the $318,000 I think we received for healthcare and mental health activities. And that'll be October 10th. So it'll be a lunch and then an additional 2 hours of showing him things based in those areas right now.
So that's for your portion of the, it was 3 million for mental health and 8 million or 5 million for
Healthcare related
work and, okay. Well, good. The Chancellor will be at our conference. And he's actually planning to stay for lunch, so it should be.
Brave man.
Should be interesting. Looking forward to it. We actually appreciate the fact that he's coming. That is something that, to say Meryl Tish was apologized that she could not attend, but it is on Rosh Hashanah. It's a bit of a difficult thing.
Yeah, unfortunate
it's not a
scheduling.
good day to pick, no.
Okay, trustee Cushman, student.
All right, well, first I want to thank Chair Cass for allowing me to chair this committee, or to be the liaison for the student corp. It is such a joy, and this is just another great group. It's led by the chair and the vice chair are actually both veterans. And we kind of named this the mover shaker group. They get things done. They're already well into their SMART goals and haven't completed them. They have just had their first meeting. So it's phenomenal. A lot of things going on. You'll see in the report. And I just wanted to, and I'm going to embarrass the president here for a second, but one of the requests for funding was for 21,000 and change for replacing the audio system in the gym. And the students are ready to go ahead and do that. The audio system's been there since 1980. It's like a handheld megaphone. And it's just irreparable. So what I appreciated was that the college stepped up and said, before you approve this, let us look to see where there's other funds, so the student funds don't get used for this. And I just applaud that. I think it follows exactly what we have set as far as our priorities for this college. And I just appreciate that. So I just kudos to you. Sorry to embarrass you that way.
You owe me a beer.
It's done. That's all.
Thank you. I'm going to need a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters regarding collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7, 105E.
I'll move.
Rachel second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session.
And trustee, with your permission, Cash, I'd like to request that the cabinet come in for this